All right, dive buddies, welcome to the deep dive. So you're thinking about taking the plunge, huh? Into the world of diving.
It's pretty amazing down there.
It really is. But before you grab your fins, you really want to understand what makes recreational and technical diving so, well, different.
Totally. You wouldn't jump into the deep end without knowing how to swim, right?
Exactly. We're gonna break it down for you in this deep dive today. So before we go too deep, let's define our terms here. What's the core difference, really, between these two diving styles, recreational and technical?
Think of it this way. Imagine yourself, I don't know, on a relaxing beach vacation.
Okay, I can get behind that.
Sunshine, clear water. Now, compare that to, say, an expedition to climb Mount Everest.
Okay, a little bit different vibe.
Very different. Recreational diving, that's your beach vacation. You're exploring, sure, but within certain limits. You're generally staying above 40 meters, breathing air, or maybe nitrox, enjoying the coral reefs, maybe a shallow shipwreck if you're feeling adventurous.
Okay, so it's all about enjoying the underwater scenery.
Exactly. Just like you would on a scenic hike, right?
Yeah. Beautiful, but within set boundaries. So if recreational diving is our leisurely stroll on the seabed, what's technical diving? Is that our Everest?
It's definitely more Everest than beach day. Technical diving is about pushing those limits. You're going deeper, you're using specialized gas mixtures to deal with the pressure, and you're exploring more demanding environments, like those really deep wrecks that are like swallowed by darkness, or maybe those underwater caves.
Oh, okay, that's intense. You're not just observing anymore, you're in it, you're facing the challenges head on. So could you walk us through what a typical dive looks like in each style?
Okay, so picture this, your classic recreational dive. You're drifting along this vibrant coral reef, sunlight's filtering down through the water. You see fish, all different colors, darting in and out of the coral. You might even see a sea turtle swimming by. You've got your single tank on your back, standard gear. You're just soaking it all in.
It sounds idyllic.
It really is peaceful.
All right, now take us to a technical dive. What are we seeing?
Things are a lot darker, more mysterious, you know. Imagine it's pitch black, except for your dive torch. You're swimming towards this massive shipwreck, barely visible in the murky water.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of eerie.
Yeah.
And you're not just carrying one tank. You've got multiple tanks, maybe a whole different BCD setup or a back plate and wing system. And you're not just breathing air down there.
What are you breathing?
You need trimix. Yeah, it's oxygen, nitrogen, and helium all mixed together. You need it to handle the effects of the depth.
Wow, that sounds serious.
It is serious. Everything has to be planned perfectly down to the last detail, because down there, every piece of equipment, it's not just gear, it's potentially life-saving.
It's a completely different ballgame down there. It seems like the training and certification to dive like that must be very different too.
Oh, absolutely. Think of it this way. Learning to drive a car versus, I don't know, learning to fly a plane.
Big difference.
Huge. You need a really strong foundation before you even think about getting behind the controls of something that complex.
Okay, so let's break down the certification journey for each. Let's start with recreational. What does that path look like?
With recreational diving, you're learning the essentials, the things you need to dive safely within those recreational limits. So you'd start with your open water course.
Open water?
Yeah, and you're learning all the basics, diving theory, how to use the equipment, all the important safety stuff. Once you're comfortable there, then you can move on to advanced open water.
So you kind of level up.
Exactly. And then in advanced open water, you can start exploring some specialties, like wreck diving or nitrox diving.
Okay, so you get to try new things, but still within those recreational boundaries.
Right. It's all about having fun, exploring, and of course being safe, always within those defined limits.
It sounds like a really good entry point for new divers.
It is. It's all about building a strong foundation before you branch out, you know. What about technical diving? What does that certification path look like?
That's a whole other animal. You're talking a serious commitment, both in terms of time and money, and honestly, you've got to really have that drive to push your limits.
It's not for the casual enthusiast.
No, not at all. You've got to have hundreds of recreational dives under your belt, really understand diving physics and physiology and decompression theory. Oh man, that's a whole other thing. You're becoming an underwater astronaut.
Wow. Okay, that's quite the comparison. What kind of specialized training would you do to become, like you said, an underwater astronaut?
Well, it usually starts with those advanced courses, things like decompression procedures, advanced nitrox.
Where you're learning to plan dives that need those carefully calculated decompression stops. And you have to be able to manage different gas mixtures so you don't, get something like nitrogen narcosis.
Ah, that sounds dangerous.
It can be. And from there, you can specialize even further. You can get into trimix diving. It's designed for really deep dives or maybe even cave diving.
Cave diving, wow.
Yeah, but that's a whole other level of expertise and risk management.
It sounds intense.
It is. It definitely is.
It really seems like that 40-meter mark you mentioned earlier, it's a real dividing line, isn't it? Not just physically, how deep you're going, but also the knowledge and experience you need to have. What makes that depth so significant? Why is it such a game changer?
Well, it all comes down to one thing: pressure. It's wild how much pressure changes as you go deeper.
Yeah, it's easy to forget up here on land.
Totally. Out here, we don't even really think about it, but down there, every meter, every foot of depth, it's more water pressing down on you. And around that 40-meter mark, that's when it starts to, really mess with your body.
Okay, so it's not just about how deep you can physically go, it's about how your body handles it. You mentioned nitrogen narcosis earlier. What exactly is happening in your body at that depth that causes that?
Okay, imagine you've had a couple of drinks, maybe one too many. You're feeling a little fuzzy, a little euphoric, your judgment's a bit loose.
A martini effect.
That's the one. And that's basically what nitrogen narcosis is, just without the fun night out. Basically, as you go deeper, the nitrogen in the air you breathe, it starts to affect your brain because of the pressure. Makes you feel kind of drunk.
And that can obviously be pretty dangerous when you're underwater and need to think clearly, right?
Super dangerous. Which is why technical divers, they use those special gas mixtures. Remember we talked about trimix?
Yeah, with the helium.
That's it. And the helium, it's not just there for fun. It's a much lighter gas than nitrogen, so it doesn't have that same, narcotic effect at depth. It helps them stay clear-headed, even when they're super deep.
So it's all about, carefully choosing what you breathe to counteract the effects of the pressure. So fascinating. What other, physiological things happen when you go deeper?
One of the big ones is decompression sickness.
The bends.
Yeah, the bends. And basically what happens is, as you go deeper, your body absorbs more nitrogen. And as you come up too quickly from a dive, that nitrogen, it can form bubbles in your tissues, just like, opening a soda bottle too fast.
Ouch. So it's not just depth, it's also about how long you're down there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Recreational divers, they usually stay within what's called no decompression limits, meaning they can go up directly to the surface, no need to stop.
So no risk of getting the bends.
Exactly. But technical diving, it often means going beyond those limits.
Yeah.
So they have to plan these decompression stops on their way back up.
Like pit stops.
Basically, they'll stop at certain depths for a certain amount of time to let their body get rid of that extra nitrogen slowly and safely.
So all that nitrogen can escape before it turns into bubbles.
Precisely. It's serious stuff. Technical divers, they plan everything meticulously, how long they'll be down there, the depth, the gas mixtures, everything. Because if they get it wrong,
The consequences can be serious.
very serious. It's a science, But also kind of an art. You've got to understand how your body reacts to the environment down there.
It's amazing how much goes into it. We've talked a lot about the risks, and obviously safety is paramount, but let's not forget diving, no matter which style, is supposed to be amazing, right? What would you say is that unique allure, that pull of each one?
Oh, they both have something special, that's for sure. With recreational diving, it's that feeling of pure wonder,
Yeah.
You're swimming through these incredible coral reefs teeming with life. Maybe you see a sea turtle or a ray swimming by. It's about connecting with nature in a way that you just can't do anywhere else.
It does sound pretty magical, but technical diving, that's got to have a different kind of magic to it, right?
Yeah.
What is it about those deeper, more technical dives that get people hooked?
It's about pushing those boundaries,
Yeah.
going further deeper, seeing things that most people will only ever dream of.
Like what kind of things? Give us a sense of what you might see on a technical dive.
Okay, so imagine you're descending into this inky blackness. And out of the darkness, you start to see the outline of a shipwreck.
Wow.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And it's old, you can feel it, the history. It's incredible. Or maybe you're exploring an underwater cave system.
Okay, that's a whole other vibe.
Right. You're squeezing through these narrow passages. The only light is coming from your torch. It's completely silent down there.
Sounds intense.
It is. It's like being on another planet. It really is.
Wow. I can see how both types of diving, they would attract very different types of people.
Oh, totally.
So are there actual communities around each style?
Absolutely. It's like two branches of the same family,
Okay, I like that.
Recreational diving, that's your big welcoming family reunion. Everyone's there to share the joy of being in the water, seeing amazing things, lots of dive clubs, group trips, people sharing underwater photos.
Sounds fun.
It is. But technical diving, that's more like your close-knit group of adventurers. You're all drawn to the challenge, the knowledge, the understanding that what you're doing, it takes a different level of commitment.
Yeah, there's definitely a different level of risk involved with technical diving, so you have to really trust the people you're diving with.
Absolutely. Trust is everything.
So I'm curious, if someone starts with recreational diving, can they switch to technical diving later on, or is it once you choose a path, that's it?
Oh, you can definitely switch. The underwater world is all about exploration, right?
That's true.
But you've got to be realistic about it. It's a big step.
Okay. So what should someone consider if they're thinking about, like, making that jump from reefs to wrecks, from, the shallows to the deep?
Well, first of all, be honest with yourself. Do you really want to do this?
Yeah.
It's not just about learning some new skills. It's a different mindset. You're dealing with risk, with pushing your limits. You have to be okay with that. And of course, you need that strong foundation in recreational diving. I'm talking hundreds of dives.
Yeah.
Perfect buoyancy control.
You can't just jump in.
No. You have to understand your limits and be able to push them safely. And once you've got that foundation, then you can start looking into the technical training, like those decompression procedures courses, advanced nitrox, learning to breathe different gases safely, that kind of thing.
So it's a process, a journey.
It is a journey, not a race. Don't rush it. Take your time, find good instructors, and most importantly, listen to your body. If something doesn't feel right, don't do it.
Safety first, always.
Always.
So as we finish up this deep dive, what final words of wisdom would you give to our listener, who's now hopefully a little more oriented in the world of diving? What should they keep in mind as they explore this incredible world beneath the surface?
I'd say choose the path that speaks to you, whether it's the peace of a coral reef or the mystery of a deep wreck. And whatever you choose, remember safety, keep learning, and always respect the ocean and everything in it. Hey, maybe I'll see you down there someday.
That would be amazing. This has been an incredible deep dive. And to our listeners, as you continue your own exploration, remember the best dive is the one that leaves you wanting more. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.